Welcome to the Rock and Roll Show podcast. We are here to share the magic of experiencing live music together with strangers and with friends, and to get to know our guests a little bit better through their concert experiences. I'm your host, Alex Gadd, and I do this because I love talking about music with people. Finding out what band someone likes and what shows they've been to allows us to get to know and understand one another a little better. And I just love swapping stories about shows we've seen over the years. Today, we've got a good one. We're welcoming my friend Dave Schultz to the podcast. Dave and I have been friends for more than 45 years now, after we met playing on the same tiny league baseball team back in the late 70s. We went to a number of shows together back in high school, and since then, Dave has become a true concert connoisseur. We'll get into what exactly that means and more, but for now, Dave, thanks for joining us.
No, good to be here. And I should
Oh,
point out that not only were we on the same tiny league team, we were state champs of like 1970. Yeah.
yes, right. Late 70s, let's just go with. All right, we have a lot of ground to cover, but I think it's always important just to start out with, how did you get into music? Was music something in your childhood that was around all the time? Were your parents into music?
I wish there was some sort of great story about it. I have to give you some credit for it, as we will surely get into. You brought me to my first rock concert.
Right, but that's later. When you were little, like when we first met, did you listen to music at all?
Yes, but it was top 40 rate.
See, for me, it was what my parents listened to in the car.
My parents don't remember them even listening to much in the car, but I was obsessed with Casey Kasem in the top 40. And then probably around high school when WNEW in New York did their top 1027 of all time. Listening to them was the first like, oh my God, there's all these songs. Even before they get to the end, this is fantastic. And then
Yeah.
my uncle, who is 15 years older than us, told him this. And so next Thanksgiving, he brought me some big steaks and Jethro Tull and other stuff that he liked. And then from there, it's like, all right, there's a whole world of music out there.
So, do you have a first favorite band or artist?
I think my first favorite band might have been Kiss.
It was my first favorite band. That's nothing to be embarrassed about. When we're of that age.
But it wasn't the Kiss of Alive, Detroit Rock City. It was the Kiss of Dynasty, and I Was Made for Loving You. Because that was sort of disco was the thing, and
Yeah.
look at that, a band with makeup, and this is cool. Oh, this is rock and roll, and yeah.
Well, I have to say, I got into Kiss earlier when we were in second grade. A kid in my class brought in his older brother or older sister's Rock and Roll Over album. So that's 76. And I was like, oh my God, that is so much more aggressive than anything my parents are listening to. That's what I want to listen to. And I went whole hog into it.
So when you got into Kiss, that was the right version of Kiss.
Right. And I was the target market. They wanted to get to young boys early and get them way into it. And I fell hook, line, and sinker for it, for sure.
I don't think I am. I might have been a member of the Kiss Army, but if I'm not, it is because I didn't have like the $8 to send them.
Yeah, I sent it along. I got a patch. My mom sewed it on my jean jacket. I got together with a kid in my fourth grade class every afternoon, and we would play street hockey sticks as guitars and do the whole side one and side two of Kiss Alive 2 every day. Lip sync, performance, the whole thing, till we were sweating. It was insane.
Did you be exploding, set things on fire, speak?
No, we pretended. We pretended. Now, your first concert, let's talk about that briefly, because I was privileged enough to go with you to that.
It was Madison Square Garden, and your Aunt Lisa got us tickets in, I think, the second row at Madison Square Garden for Tina Turner with Glenn Frey.
Correct, on the Private Dancer tour.
And went to go Back to the Future in Times Square beforehand, and then went over to the garden.
So I'll tell you a funny story about that. The reason we did that is that I'd gone to see Van Halen, and I took Dan Lyons. And before Van Halen, he and I went to see Spinal Tap, which we knew nothing about, except that it was about a rock band. And my mind was so blown by seeing the movie Spinal Tap in Times Square. And then we went to see the Van Halen show. So whenever we went to see Tina Turner, I wanted to replicate that whole experience. So that's why I suggested that.
I remember you mentioning it, saying, we're going in early, we're doing this, it will be fantastic.
And was it?
It was good.
Well, Back to the Future wasn't as
It was
good
a
as
movie,
Spinal Tap.
and the show was fantastic. And I
Yeah.
vaguely remember we had better seats than Alan Rashad and Felicia Rashad.
I think they were right behind us, right?
I remember them walking in. I remember that they were definitely behind us though. So everyone going,
Yeah.
look at us.
We had really good seats. That may have been the best seats I've ever had at the Garden, except the Van Halen show, where I sat right on the side of the stage and talked to Eddie during the bass solo. It was amazing.
Well, now the thing is, and I don't know if I really thought about it, but I guess I always figured at that point, oh, it must just this.
I only wish.
I remember a few years back at the Stamford Palace, Jethro Tull came to play there. So I took my parents to go see Jethro Tull. And James Bryan, who I wrestled with in high school, is one of the security guards there. He's on the other side of the door. So I go up and kind of ask, is that James Bryan? And he goes, yeah, I wrestled with him in high school. Guy sort of looks down and goes, I was the 100-pounder. He was the heavyweight. So James and I go just behind, when I say behind the door, fire door. And so while we're there, Giddings, who was the keyboard player at the time, walks by. Here's us just sort of talking and kind of mentioned that this is my mom's first concert ever. And Giddings goes, oh, that's brilliant. So we go back out. And so at the end of the night, my mom just sort of thinks that you go to a show, you see someone you go backstage, you meet the band, and come back out. Like, no, that is not how this works. So, I don't know, you went. That seems to be what you did.
She had one data point. It was 100% accurate. Just to clarify, August 1st, 1985, we went to see Tina Turner in Madison Square Garden. She was amazing. That was great. Your next concert after that?
Would be also with you. My dad took us to go see Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band in Giant Stadium in the Born in the USA tour.
Exactly 30 days later on August 31st, 1985.
I'm you either have this written down or you have a ring.
Oh no, I'm looking at my Set List FM concert list.
And then the reason why my dad went was, well, one, we were 16. When we went to get tickets, this was the old days. So friend Mark, who went with us, sat outside someplace in Bedford, Poundridge, all night tickets. Right in the parking lot. Because there was a Ticketron outlet there. These were $18. And my dad said we could do this, we could stay out. However, the deal was we had to get him the ticket because he wasn't going to let us go to New Jersey all by ourselves. Yeah. And then a couple weeks later, he just kind of goes, I just really wanted to see Springs.
Oh, that's cool. That's actually a much cooler reason. I like that one much better. Much better. Third concert?
Amnesty International at Giant Stadium.
You missed one. Also with me.
Wait, was it the Clapton show?
No.
No, it was David Lee Roth.
Correct. The next year in October, we went to see David Lee Roth on his first solo tour with Steve Vai playing guitar, Billy Sheehan on the bass, Greg Bissonette on the drums at Madison Square Garden. All right, so that's high school. You went to see Amnesty. I was there, but we didn't go together. You saw Neil Young. I didn't. Eric Clapton, we saw together.
Right.
And then you went off to college. I went off to college, and we kind of lost touch. But you started really diving into concerts. So before we get into the next experiences, about how many concerts have you seen?
I want to say it's probably over 1,000.
I would think it's over 2,000.
Maybe. The coolest thing would be how many bands. Because it's something
Sure. How many bands have you seen?
80 over 5,000. Oh,
yeah.
And a lot of that is because it's places, things like South by Southwest, Newport Folk Festival, 5,000 like that too much. South by Southwest, you could see 100 bands in 5 minutes.
And for anyone who's interested, South by Southwest is a festival in Austin, Texas every year. It's a technology festival, it's a film festival, and a music festival all together. And they have bands showcasing every day of the music part of the festival from morning till night in everything from parking lots to bars to amphitheaters, correct?
More or less up until maybe about 7, 8 years ago, it felt like every single available open spot had
Mhm.
stage and had bands playing there from pretty much noon to 2 in the morning. Now it's more on some of the bars and the venues, and it's not every open spot. I always describe it like it's Disneyland for music lovers. That if you are adventurous, don't mind seeing some stuff that maybe you don't like, but if you don't like it, you just go walk next door and there's something else. Um,
Mhm.
it's it's Nirvana. You'll see a whole bunch of things. Some you know, some you don't know, some you never thought you would ever go see ever. I mean, what I'm thinking of when I say that, Men Without Hats played there one year at 1 in the morning. And it was a group of people between the ages of like 35 to 55 who were there to hear one song. I remember that they did a Men Without Hats version of Jumpin' Jack Flash. And then it was crap, crap, crap. A song I vaguely remember it as being the follow up to the same dance. Crap, crap. A lengthy version of the safety dance during which everyone lost their minds doing the same dance and it was old people gone crazy.
Yeah.
And then they kept playing,
Oh.
to which everyone's kind of grumbling. So then they sort of did the thing of, well, we maybe could play one more song. And everyone was like, yes, play the safety dance again. And then they didn't. And then they had to watch as everybody walked out of the venue while they were still.
Yeah. It's tough to be a legacy artist trying to impress people with their newer music.
To this day, I still don't know why they were at South by Southwest. Don't think they had a new album. But however, when else were you ever going to go see them?
Of all the bands you've seen, what is the band or artist you've seen the most often?
Think it might be either White Denim, Tea Leaf Green, You Melt. And I don't know how this happened. Some Dead in Company.
Wow.
Well, I mean, there's a group of friends. Dead in Company. We all like going, but it is also a good excuse for all of us to get together.
That's a good
So
reason.
right,
Yeah.
we'll meet out in Colorado. And impetus for all of us to get together would be a couple of Dead and Company shows, at Folsom Fields. But they, over the years, it has built up that maybe that is one of the bands I've seen the most.
And the others are much more secondary in the public consciousness. I mean, I've heard of White Denim. I've never even heard of Tea Leaf Green.
You're both of those. You Melt sadly is no longer around. And in those of how many, maybe a couple dozen. That
Yeah.
the most, I don't think I've seen any band more than a couple dozen times. Although
Yeah.
White Denim keeps playing, we'll go see them wherever, whenever.
Our mutual friend Jeff, who's been on the podcast, he said that's his favorite band ever.
He is correct. I'll say with that, it is the best band of the last 15 years.
How do we get a band who is that good into the public consciousness more?
That's a good question. And I'll be honest. If I knew, I'd have a record label and I would be making money hand over fist. But sadly, I think it is almost the story of great band, great shows, has a loyal following, but never gets any bigger is probably more the rule than it is the exception.
Yeah, you describe that, and I think of bands like Dispatch and other bands that have really intense, loyal followings that most people have never heard of. And even if they've heard of them, they've never heard a song from them or wouldn't be able to identify that they've heard a song from them.
It's probably a book there of how Tea Leaf Green escaped becoming
Stardom.
bigger because a couple different things happen different ways. And instead of talking about them in I think I remember them, everybody would know of. Great band. When Fish went on hiatus, the void was filled by a bunch of really good, if not jam bands, but jam-ish. Just basically, there's a vacuum that's going to be filled. And Tea Leaf was one of them, probably in like the mid to late aughts. Great songs, great musicians, Actually, they still play shows every so often, and what a great band they still are.
One of the best outcomes from doing this podcast is I learn things about bands I've never heard of. So I will be diving into the Tea Leaf Green discography after we get off
I am
this call
jealous
tonight.
that you get to hear it all for the first time.
Right, like I did with White Denim after I talked to Jeff. I can't wait. What's another band like that that you've seen that you think is exceptional, whether they're still playing or not, that never made it into the general public consciousness?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, let's come back to that.
Okay, think about that. Put that on the back burner. Now, usually I ask people what the most recent concert they've seen is, but you and I were together 3 nights ago to see Jeff Lynne's ELO, which amusingly, you said what I had already said before I left, which is, wasn't it always Jeff Lynne's ELO? What's the difference?
I'm still humored that it was 2024 and it was yellow in
It,
Madison Square Garden.
it was fascinating. And before this episode is released, I'm going to release my ELO concert review, my Jeff Lynne's ELO concert review. The visuals in that concert were incredible, I thought. The sound in Madison Square Garden was exceptional
What?
for Madison Square Garden. And it was as we joked about, the crispest 19 song set I've ever been at. It was over in a brisk hour and 25 minutes.
They were the efficient light orchestra.
The very, exactly. What were some of the best shows you've seen this year? I know you went to the Dead and Company at the Sphere. I'd love to hear about that experience.
That was it. Now, to go back to the other question, band that should have been bigger,
Yes.
Grace Potter and the Nocturnals.
Yes. Talk more about them.
Grace and the Nocturnals, especially the lineup where they had Scott Tournay, Benny Yurko, Memphis, Cat Popper. The band was poised. I remember they did, I forget what it was. It was on VH1. They did something for the troops where Ann Wilson from Hearts sang with them right around the time that Paris had come out. And that seemed that they were going to become gigantic.
Mhm.
And then it's not like, oh, they this happened and this happened. It just didn't. And then I know Cat left the band, and then the album was coming out. So the whole thing just fell apart at that point. So now Grace is on her own. Scott Tournay has a wonderful band. Sometimes it's called Electric Voodoo. Other times he's just Scott Tournay. He's coming around in a couple weeks to Brooklyn Bowl. Benny Yurko is now producing, which he would pick up on guitar because he is fantastic. And I hear why didn't it happen? Sure, there's a story. It might probably never get told. Also, I think to some extent, these might not be stories the people want told. I also find the true story sometimes isn't that interesting. You can imagine a better story of how this all fell apart than what really happened.
Fair enough. And sometimes there's good to be a little mystery in rock and roll.
Very true.
Real quick, the recent concerts you've seen this year that you really liked, most
Um,
memorable from this year?
well, as far as memorable, I think I may have seen the last Jane's Addiction show that they actually finished. What show it? Like South by Southwest. There was this band called Hot Wax, which was three girls from London. And I just happened to be outside and I said, all right, no, I heard they were good. So they're playing and I'm like, this is good. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, they are fantastic. And then I noticed on their hands, they had the big black X's, which is what they do in Austin if you're underage. So it's like, oh my God, not only are they fantastic, they're teenagers. And you sort of go, wow, will anything ever happen with them? Don't know. I think
Right.
maybe they have to finish high school.
I hope they don't. I hope they just pour into the music while they still are young and have the energy and the drive.
Like I said, there was Dead and Company at the Sphere. You've been to the Sphere, you know how fantastic it is. If you haven't, go. It is a totally different concert experience. So for the Dead and Company thing, went to two shows there. What was kind of funny was the videos and pictures don't do it justice because you look at that and it's like, oh, it's a band and a giant screen behind. And that really doesn't do justice to what the Sphere is. I mean, it is kind of like when you go to Disneyland and there are those rides where feels like you're on the roller coaster and you're zooming left and right, except you're not moving. It's the screen in front of you. And
Hmm.
that's kind of what the Sphere is. At one point, realizing, oh, the way the screen and everything is moving, it is the entire Sphere is spinning. Not in a whoa, this is spin. It's like this is cool. It is as if we're all turning around and around, or it would tilt forward, tilt, and then you talk about this for a while, and then you go, oh, and the band was good too.
Got it. What's your most memorable concert ever? You've seen so many. Is there one or a couple that just stand out above all the others?
It sounds silly because wasn't it? But the Clapton show we went to years ago,
87.
that
87.
always gets into my head because it was before the renaissance of Clapton. Crossroad, the box set hadn't come out yet. So Clapton wasn't in his master bluesman stage.
Hmm.
It was him in a jeans and a t-shirt running around the stage, playing 2 solos per song, looking like he was having a lot of fun. And that's the one that always pops into my head.
I agree. That was great. That was April of 1987. That was right before we graduated from high school at the Garden with a killer band with Greg Phillinjeans and Nathan East on bass and Phil Collins playing the drums. He had
Yeah.
produced Clapton's last record. He opened with Crossroads, and then he just played his hits. It was like an all hits show. It was amazing.
The another one, I'd love to say I was the impetus for it, but saw Pearl Jam at the Blind Peak in Ann Arbor in 1991. It was old. And this was, they were on tour with the Smashing Pumpkins and Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Hmm.
And
And it was a Chili Peppers.
they were the opening band for the opening.
Right.
10 had come out, but Alive had blown up on MTV yet. It was packed, everybody knew who they were. And that was sort of the thing of going, this band is not going to be playing small places like this for much longer.
Right. That's pretty memorable. That's incredible.
Yeah. I remember seeing Arcade Fire when their second album was coming. The one with My Body is a Cage. They were already darlings of the internet at that point. But they played like 5 shows at Judson Memorial Church, right off Washington Square or Union Square, one of the squares. And this is cool. They're playing in this. Wait a minute, it's church. They did it on purpose. It was full, but it was not. So it was really cool, but just one of those, like, they're not playing places like this much longer. Next couple of this summer, Madison Square Garden and Barclay.
Here's another good question. Have you ever discovered a great band only after seeing them open? Because Pearl Jam, you knew who they were by the time you saw them. They just weren't huge. Had you ever really discovered a band only as an opening act?
Yes. Robert Randolph and the Family Band.
They're so good.
Went to a Dave Matthews Band show. My friend Ryan got tickets for my birthday, so we went. And I remember it was also the first show where someone called me sir. And I was irrationally upset. Come back like, what's wrong? Because my friends thought something bad happened. And I was like,
Right.
I just bumped into somebody. He said, excuse me, sir.
Oof.
And they were like, and you're upset. I'm like, the polite little pissant did not need to call me sir. But where now, as this discussion is going on, Robert Randolph and the Family Band are just killing it on stage. And I'm not sure if many people knew who they were, but very slowly was, what in the world is going on stage? And it was like, oh my God, who is this guy? Is fantastic.
He was at See Here Now over last weekend, and he played the after party show, and Springsteen came up and played with him. It was pretty cool.
Yes, the shame is, I remember some of this with our friend Jess and a couple other people, and it was like, how did he never become bigger? And one of them's Jeremy Gordon goes, that guy goes to a ton of shows. He says, because they never could write good songs. But it was, oh, yeah. When you think about it, a lot of their stuff was instrumental.
He's such a good player that music fans and live music fans love him, but it is a tougher sell because the lyrics and the meaning of the songs is light.
Right. But of the thing of, like, how did this not become bigger? Just that, he said, great musician, great band, not a ton of great songs.
Have you been to a concert where an unannounced guest came out and performed? And if so, what's the best experience you ever had?
This is the Neil Young show.
Which year?
Something. Wait, where it would be easy to figure out. The unannounced was David Crosby just gotten out of jail.
So 86.
Okay. And when I say just got out of jail, maybe if the show was on a Friday or Saturday, you get out of jail like Monday or Tuesday or something like that close. And early on in the show, Crosby and Steven Stills, or was it Nash? Oh, I think it was Crosby and Nash. Remember the team? They played Ohio. Maybe something like where they were just going to harmonize.
Right.
Nat. I remember thinking, like, it was cool. That man just got out of jail and is here. And Springsteen. I think the key to getting Springsteen to show up and play is you just ask him.
I mean, the guy was born to be on stage.
But I think that's how easy it is to get him to play. It's like, ask him, Bruce, we're playing over here tonight. You want to come into the city and play? I'm not doing anything. Sure.
Yeah, sure. It's not a hard sell to get him on stage.
No, water. I think you have to have the cojones to say, hi, Bruce, will you come play on stage?
Right.
And I'm incredibly honored right now. We are backstage. We asked Bruce if he would come out and play one with us. And he said yes. So this is a thrill of a lifetime for me. Ladies and gentlemen, Bruce Springsteen.
I want to switch to venues for a minute. Let's put the Sphere aside because you were just there and that's so unique. What's the venue that you've attended the most concerts at?
It would be something like the Bowery Ballroom or Mercury Lab. The problem is, sadly, venues keep closing. So, you go there, it's 5-6 shows a year for about 4 years, and then it's gone.
Right.
Maybe the Bowery Ballroom.
Is that where we saw London Souls?
London Souls.
Yeah. That's where I ran into you with our friend Joran.
That's true. Who never put together the two of us.
Right. And then we ended up at the bar getting ready to go see the London Souls. Yeah. That was a good show. Really good show.
That was.
And your favorite concert?
Bowery Ballroom. There is something about
why? Go into why.
It just feels like that is what a venue should be. It just a combination of the layout. Bar underneath. There's some balconies which never really need to go in there, and there's sometimes for the or at least one half of it anyway. Laid out right, the sound is always good, but it also had the right. I think it holds. I want to say 750, and if it's not that, about that. But it always has the bands playing there on their way up. It's exciting because that's about the right size to see a young, hungry band. And if it's somebody who has already outgrown that and they come to play there, even better, you're seeing them in a place that's smaller than that they should.
What's your least favorite concert venue?
Terminal 5.
It's funny. You, me, and Jeff, the same answer.
Even though I look on this picture here like I'm about 6'7", no, I'm not. So for somebody who is not that tall, Terminal 5, he had those 2 balconies that went pretty far back,
Hmm.
and they sold that venue as if those were available spaces. Unless you're at the front on the rail, you can't see anything. So everybody would go down to the floor, which would
Right.
get way too crowded.
Way too crowded. Of all the different types of venues, I count 5 normally: clubs, theaters, amphitheaters, arenas, and stadiums. What's your favorite type of venue to go see a show in?
Whatever, something the size of, like, I like small bands.
So clubs.
Right, yeah. And even better if it is the bands that will play, like the Mercury Lounge, which I think holds
Hmm.
maybe 300-400, or Bowery Ball. Those size venues feels like the right number for a great show. It's not going to be a light show, a video show,
Right.
or something like that. It's small, it's intimate. If everybody's into it, even better. South by Southwest, like I said, a lot of those, sometimes you just go and it is like, this is a empty building the other 51 weeks out of the year, but during South by Southwest, they put up a stage and some amps,
Sure.
and here, come listen to the band.
Hmm. I know you've been backstage and hung out with artists before. Do you have any particular favorite memories of your time interacting with the musicians at their own show?
To remember, in Summer Stage, Grace Potter and the Nocturnals, they scavenged everything, all the bottles of water, all of like the granola bars, the protein bars. They just grabbed everything. And I'm like, do you not have a home? And they're like, nope, never know. Put it on the bus and it's there if you need it.
Resupply. Hey, it's part of their rider. It was for them anyway.
It is. Well, but they were doing it from everywhere. And it wasn't that they were just doing it. We're doing it expertly. This was not the first time taking everything but the placemats from backstage.
That's kind of funny. Who's the most famous musician you've ever met at a concert, whether it's their show or not?
I didn't meet him, but oh God, this did happen. So I'm at South by Southwest, and I'm at one venue, and I look over, and there is that's Jay Mascis,
Mascus.
Dinosaur Jr.
Yeah.
So he's standing next to me, and this was the indoor stage. So then go to the patio stage, which is a different band. I think it was Titus Andronicus. And turn and look at him standing next to Jay Mascis again. I was like, yeah, this is kind of neat. And it's all right. And so then walked to the place next door called Swan Dive. There's a band called Sleepy Sun that was playing outdoors. And I turned and there's Jay Mascis standing next to me again. So I figured, okay, even though he doesn't know who I am, surely he knows I have been standing next to him 3 different stages.
Right.
I turned and said, are you following me? You would have thought I had just shown him pictures of where his kid goes to school. It said, I know where you live. He looked at me, his eyes bugged out, ran away. I said, all right. He frightened by trying to make a joke.
That's very funny. I like to talk about your bucket list. Do you have a concert venue you've never been to that you're dying to go to still? Let's assume that it's not the Sphere.
Right. So that's since I've been there. I mean, it's Red Rocks, which I got to imagine it's either the Sphere or Red Rocks for everyone right now, unless they.
How about bands? Is there a band still performing that you haven't seen but you'd like to the most?
For a long time, my bucket list was, and this dates itself, was REM, Radiohead, and Prince. And then I saw them, and I don't know if I've really repopulated the bucket list since then.
Interesting. Now, before we wrap up, I do want to go back to the beginning of our tale because after we played baseball together for 1 year, you went to a different little league than I did. And I think it's important that you tell us about your coach.
Meatloaf was my little league baseball coach.
Okay, that is such. I mean, we all knew because again, this is 79. Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell came out in 77, and at least in my circles was all the rage. We all listened to the Meatloaf record. And then we stayed in touch. Our family stayed in touch, even though we didn't go to the same elementary school. And my mom said, "You know, you're listening to that record. That's Dave Schultz's baseball coach." And I said, "What?" So tell us how that happened.
He coached us. He was our assistant coach in 1980 and our head coach in 1981. So he ended up becoming our coach. He lived next to Chestnut Hill Park,
Yeah.
which was where we played Little League. And he is a baseball, softball jumper.
Yeah.
So he saw an ad in the local paper that we needed coaches. So he said, "Yeah, I'll coach." And we needed an assistant coach. So our head coach was Mr. Smith. We worked for IBM. And so he wanted to make sure this wasn't publicity stuff. Because the last thing I think he wanted was to, he says yes, and now everybody's little league season is ruined. So we
Right.
show up to the first practice, and Nervous just goes, "All right, those of you that weren't on the team last year, my name is Mr. Smith. I'm the head coach. This is my son, Andy. He's one of the assistant coaches. And this is Meatloaf. He's the other assistant coach. All right, grab the gloves. Let's go." So we're like, "Huh? What? Okay. It's a strange name." Finally, someone just says, "Are you that Meatloaf?" And he goes, "No, I'm the other one." And then we just went on.
That sounds like him. And he had a movie that came out, right? Was it called Roadie?
Rody. When he was
Him
coaching,
and Debbie Harry, right? If I remember correctly.
yeah, it's a terrible movie. He told us he was in the movie. He was the star.
Right. It was all built up around him.
Right. And I think he may have known that it wasn't a good movie, which is why he was downplaying that he was
Yeah.
the star. But and this was really neat. So we rented 3 limos. We all went over to his house, and we were 11, 11, 11 boys in suits and one in a dress because our second baseman was a girl.
Right.
Got in the limos, and he brought us there. And we were
There is where. Hold on. You skipped one part. Brought you where?
in the Manhattan. God, so the life of me, I don't remember, but we went to the world premiere of the movie.
There you go.
And as we're all there, Meatloaf can listen to us talk, and he knew most of us really, really liked Debbie here. We didn't know it, but Blondie was in the movie. So,
Right.
"Hey, Debbie, come here. This is my team. Team, this is Debbie." She's like, "Hi, team." And then
Right. Of course.
he said, "Yeah, I don't want to think. Let's just go with your rules." He was a wondrously nice guy. He was recording Dead Ringer
Yeah.
while he was coaching us. With the only time there was ever sort of rock star moment with him, he was late for a game, and the limo dropped him off at the field, and he got out of the limo dressed to a coach. That
Nice.
was the only time I ever sort of got a rock star moment. Otherwise, he was really down to earth, would have the year-end party, at his house, and on the walls were the gold records
Yeah.
and a Rocky Horror Picture Show poster.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. It's unfortunate that his own starring movie wasn't as good as the cult classic that he was barely in. That became one of the greatest movies ever made.
And one of the things we still talk about in our family, my dad came to pick me up, so he brought my grandfather. But my dad got to say the words Meatloaf, Victor, 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 Meatloaf, and then just started chuckling to himself. This is surreal. As Meatloaf's going, you have the same first and last name, and my grandfather is going, why are you named after? Then,
All right. What's the next show you're going to?
Tomorrow, going to see Phosphorescent at Webster Hall.
Okay.
Saturday, going to go see the Heavy Heavy at Music Hall Williamsburg.
Okay.
And then Tuesday, Wednesday, going to the Tedeschi Trucks Band shows.
Very nice. Very nice. And the big finale, I like to get a bigger perspective on all of this from my guests. What is it about live music that keeps you going back for more?
It's probably the closest thing to a drug you can do. When you go there, it takes you out of your head for a little bit. And not every show. Sometimes when you have a job, sometimes you go there and you're spending the entire 90 minutes, 2 hours thinking about what you have to do the next day. But other times, and I think one of the things I like most with Fish is for maybe about a good 3-4 hours, you're out of worrying about anything. And you're there, pay attention to music. If it hits you right, it's right. But just sort of a nice cleanse is the wrong word. But something that sort of feeds the soul a little. And
Right.
sometimes you see something completely unexpected or something you're like, this is every bit as good as I thought it was. Other times you're like, wow, they do not capture what they do in the studio while on stage. And so then you just see something you're like, well, this is a great story. That's the music. The other thing I think is always really fun is you go to a show with somebody. And so here, when we went to ELO, half the fun of it was we got to go to a show together, hung out beforehand, catch up, how you doing, and the shared experience with people who you know and like. And not thinking about there's the other people that are there. And I always think it's a little bit weird that there isn't more interaction amongst fans in the show. Because the one thing you all have in common is you like this band.
It's funny you say that because at the best shows that I go to, the ones that I'm most invested in, I'm more willing to talk to the strangers around me at Springsteen shows, at Stone shows. I end up, oh my God, did you see that? Yeah, you too. Oh, wow, my God, it was great. And I think that is part of it. That a good show, you mentioned Fish, certainly there's a communal feeling at the Dead. When everybody's into it and it's really happening on stage, I think there is that communal interaction amongst the fans.
And I find the older the crowd skews, the more you get hey, sit down in front of me, stop dancing. I paid however much money to see this show and I can't see because you're dancing and having fun in front of me. I think as the fans audience skews older, there's more of that than, oh, you're standing and dancing. We'll stand and dance too. Now we're all standing and dancing.
Right.
And at Newport they say, we're all stronger when we sing together.
I
And
like that. That's a good thing to say.
and I think younger a crowd skews, the more people have the same mindset for what they want to do with the show.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, Dave, I can't thank you enough. It's a pleasure talking about music with you anytime. And yes, let's do this again. And let's see a show again soon. I'll find another show that we can go to. Keep me in mind if someone bails at the last minute, give me a call. But it's such a pleasure. We've been on this musical journey, started it together. We're still here. And I wish you all the best. And thank you for your time.
Just let me know when you want to do part 2. I'm here.
Deal. And that's it for today's conversation. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next Tuesday. And if you like what you heard today, we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe or follow to make sure you get notified about every new episode. And please tell your friends. Also, a reminder, we'll release a playlist for every episode of the show. So look for the Rock and Roll Show podcast playlist on Spotify every week, featuring songs from the bands mentioned during today's episode. So check that out. Additionally, we want to know what you think. Please leave us a comment. We'll try to respond to every one of them. The Rock and Roll Show podcast is a World Highway Media production. I'm your host, Alex Gadd, and until next time, remember that life is short, so get those concert tickets.